Hi, I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick, and I'm recording here on a Sunday for Monday's podcast at a most magical time of the week. Why is it a magical time of the week? Well, because the Bills game hasn't been played yet. And as you know, for almost all Bills fans, actually almost all sports fans, that time in the day on the weekend before their team of choice plays is magical. It is full of possibility. You haven't won yet, but you also haven't lost yet. You don't know what's going to happen. And it is in the spirit of not knowing what is going to happen. I'm going to use this positive energy, and I'm going to use it to record a podcast. As you know, this is 10 Minutes with Nick. I'd like to thank everybody who subscribes. I'd like to thank everybody who listens in. One commenter left a comment that said, "You sound like an honest guy giving honest advice." I appreciate you, commenter. Forgot your name, which is unfortunate. I don't actually know your name. I know your user handle. If you hear this, and you listen to this, and you hear this, and you hear me referencing your comment, please leave another comment. Like and subscribe. Hang out for a while. But another guy left a comment that sort of gave me pause for thought. And wait here as I dramatically pause for thought. No, I'm not going to waste that kind of time. We're on a 10-minute podcast. But he left a comment on my post where I had said, ladies, meet the men halfway. The man, if a man is approaching you and a man is trying to ask you out and he's failing at it because men typically aren't very good at that sort of thing, even though it's required of us, help the guy out. Show your interest clearly. Stop playing. Just don't play the games. He left a comment, and he said, women are already doing that. So we're already in the mode of this is a man speaking for women. It's always a great place to start. You really want to make sure that as a man, you want to really make sure that you speak for the women in your life. They hate it when they have to say something on their own. Anybody who wasn't watching the video just didn't see me roll my eyes because I'm not as good as Chandler. Rest in peace, Matthew Perry. I'm not as good as Chandler was at rolling my eyes vocally. So I have to actually roll them to get my point across. Even though I have the face for radio. Anyway, he left a comment basically saying to my suggestion that women help the guys out and meet them halfway. He said, maybe they are because the bar for men is so low these days. The bar for men is so low to just not have an abusive, misogynistic partner. Well, first of all, guy, Bambi, Bumpy, something or other, I appreciate you leaving a comment, and I actually appreciate you engaging with the content that I had created. It lets me know that it's getting out there, it lets me know that people are listening, and you listened to it critically, which I do appreciate. Keep leaving responses. You probably won't agree with me much if you didn't like that one, but that's okay. I welcome rigorous discourse. Because it gives me the excuse to say rigorous discourse. That's just a fun set of words. But the bar for men is so low just to not be misogynistic or abusive. There are few words in the English language that get more overused nowadays than misogynistic. Why? Well, because misogynistic is a fun little buzzword used to speak about men and speak about men in such a way as to denigrate them, and to denigrate them in such a way that you can end the debate. It's a debate winner, you might say, because once you've called someone misogynistic, well, they can't come back from that. You hate women. Well, your only response to that can be, no, I don't. And then you're on the back foot and you look like an absolute ridiculous person. But misogyny itself it's not a loaded term. It's a term that means an absolute hatred of women. Like a misogynistic person cannot have a positive relationship with a woman at all because he hates women so much. That's misogyny. Dislike of an individual is not necessarily misogyny in and of itself. Now, if men in general and as a rule are misogynistic, the world really is in some major trouble. And of course, somebody here can chime in and say, well, Nick, you've said you're a Christian so many times, the Bible itself is misogynistic. I'm not going to have that debate with you in a 10-minute podcast. It's just not going to happen. If you want to be interviewed, random straw man commenter I've just invented now, and I'm so sorry for inventing a straw man to debate with on a 10-minute podcast. If you want to have that debate, I'm more than happy to do a 10 minutes with whoever you are. We have an interview coming up this week, 10 minutes with Megan. She's going to have to tell me how to pronounce her last name. She, some Italian, Ukrainian, I don't know. But she's a fire rescue person. It's going to be a fun interview. But when I do interviews with people, it's 10 minutes with them, and the 10 minutes is misleading because it's not actually 10 minutes. It's actually a series of 10 minutes. One might call that an hour if you do 6 10-minute podcasts out of one interview. What I'm saying is, his comment assumed that misogyny and abuse are mainstays in our society. And if they truly are mainstays in our society, then we're just screwed in general. All the goodness I see out in the world then can't outweigh it. I saw another quote that sort of framed it for me. Now, granted, the term mainstream media is very loaded because it's typically used by people who are trying to discredit news sources by simply lumping them all together as mainstream media. And it's used both by Republicans and Democrats. It's used by left wing. It's used by right wing. It's a loaded term, and it's pretty much creates a straw man term. But for the purposes of this quote, it was interesting. The mainstream media's job is to make you believe that the opinions of the 10% are the opinions of the 90%. That is interesting. That is useful. Any media group, you have to remember, any media group has sponsors. They have to sell ads to stay on the air, which means to rate ads, they have to get viewers. And what better way to get viewers than sex, murder, lies, the sorts of things you see in scripted television? Why not see it on your nightly news? Well, for one thing, you shouldn't see it on your nightly news because it's absolutely effing terrifying to see that on your news every single night. Murder, mayhem, violence, rape, chaos, like all of this stuff. It shows up every night on your news. It's pumped into your house. And if you watched nothing but the news, if you did nothing but follow the news, you would believe that not only are all men misogynists and abusive, but you would believe that every man is one bad day away from murder. One bad day. If you fundamentally believe that about humanity, I cannot help you. I'm not qualified. You need to see a therapist because that's just an unhealthy amount of stress to carry on your body, to assume the worst of every single person when you go out. You may say it's a male prerogative that I don't have to assume the worst of everybody when I go out. Sure. Okay. But assuming the worst of everybody when you go out solves nothing. It builds on nothing. So when you look at that family down the street, do you go like, wow, those guys really beat the odds? Or do you say to yourself maybe like, wow, that's just nice. It's nice to see a little slice of humanity. How do we explain the people doing charity work? How do we explain the good people in the world? Ladies and gentlemen, it's okay to identify bad actors. It's okay to rage against those who are misogynistic. It's okay to rage against those who are abusive. It's completely okay to identify those people. It's completely okay to be angry against those people. But don't impute the 10% on the 90%. And I've done this in the context of men right now, but men, don't do this to women either. 10% of the women out there might have unrealistic standards for men. Don't assume that all women do. Don't assume the worst. We assume the worst in each other because that's what pays the bills for podcasters, what pays the bills for the news. Those are the stories that sell. Don't believe those stories. If you If they prove to be true on an individual basis, then it's true on that person's basis. But don't assume it overall. It's just an unhealthy way to be. My friend Bampy, if you'd like to come on the show and be interviewed 10 minutes with Bampy, I would love to have you. Keep engaging, keep leaving comments, keep disagreeing with me, because honestly, it gives me a lot to talk about. And anytime you want me to not talk about you in the third person, more than happy to have you on the show. You seem like a person who is very intelligent, very smart, very you have a lot of critical thinking ability. I would love to have you on the show. For the rest of you, I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. Have a great day. Go Bills.